Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser. It's Friday, so Kermit is back in action. He had last Friday off with a long weekend, but he's back with us as always on a Friday. Is John? John, what's happening, man?
I'm good. In the mold of Tim, I got the Batman mug. That means that means the weekend is coming up. So I'm delighted. Yeah, glad that this week is almost done. Kind of it.
Yes, TGIFF, as we call it in the
Right.
show, about freaking time. And with us, making his debut with us over here is Anan, right? I didn't butcher the name there.
You almost butchered it, but no, it's perfect. Good morning, good morning. Good to be here. I'm excited, and let's get the show on the road, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, welcome to the show, man. Yeah, we got a bunch of headlines to go over. So let's start with like the Liverpool stuff and get this out of the way. Let's throw the chart over there. And John, there's Mbappe rumors all over the place. Where are you putting? I'm afraid to ask, but where are you putting it on the style right here?
Yeah, I saw that actually through the Discord, and I looked at my phone and just immediately put because I was in the middle of a game session, right? So I looked at my phone, then just put it down. So that's pretty much how I feel about the entire thing. I didn't really look much into it. So yeah, through this meter over here, I would say just like farther below not bloody likely. Like if that's even possible, if the meter could go that low. Mbappe is not going to go to Liverpool Football Club. His wages are too high. I don't know if his attitude fits what Jurgen wants in terms of like the players and how they would approach things. So yeah, definitely lower than not bloody likely. Not at all. Not in this lifetime.
So,
Maybe in a,
Anan, do you see any possible scenario where Mbappe can come to Liverpool? Like, if I said, you know what, make a scenario for me, you come up with a scenario that listeners are going to be like, you know what, that could freaking happen.
The only possible way is if it was FIFA 23 or FIFA 24. Other than that is the only scenario I could think of, man. It's just not even a bloody likely. It's Mission Impossible Part 12, and we haven't even gotten there yet. It's just
Right.
not going to happen. It's just not
Yeah,
going to
I
happen.
don't see it. I mean, like I say, there's a lot of talk, and we were even like just for shits and giggles talking about the scenarios. And this was basically what I was saying is Chris says the only scenarios where Mbappe comes to Liverpool means Salah is going to start. I mean, there's no way. First of all, I almost feel like Salah or Nunez or both would be going somewhere else instead because I just don't see any other way. And there's so many things that don't fit compared to it's so much easier to make a case for why it won't happen than why it can happen. I like the FIFA scenario. Even then, actually, yeah, Chris says it's just not happening. He has made the call. Let's move on. Yeah, it's just not happening. I agree. I mean, it's just, but I figured, hey, it's the rumorville, so we'll shoot about it. Lavia price tag is floating around at around 50. I mean, obviously, this is like the asking price, if you will. I think, what's expected to be and stuff like that. High, low, just about, and then where are you at with that price tag?
In today's market, I would say it's just about fair. It's just about right. I just don't think we should be pushing for the move right now just because the more talk that's happening, the more they're going to ask for demand more money. Kind of like Chelsea, kind of like Brighton right now are asking for more money to get their players sent out just because so many people are looking at them. Kind of cool it down, let it flow, and then see what happens as we get towards the end of summer where I think we could get a better deal for him or look elsewhere if it's just not going to happen.
You like that 50 price tag? Alan says it'll be 40 plus add-ons, which sounds more right to me. But where are you at with this, John?
yeah, what Alan said, 40 plus add-ons seems a bit more sensible. I would say. I mean, it's 10 million difference, but getting a young talent like Lavia for 50 compared to 40 plus add-ons, 40 looks so much better on the headline. But to Anand's point, I agree. It's a bit too hasty for us to just get in and agree right away on whatever they're going to be quoting because. Like I told you a few weeks ago, man, I'm not sold on Lavia. I feel like he is a project. He can be a good player, but in terms of like someone that we could throw in right now and expect to deliver right away, in terms of what we're expecting, the levels that we want to achieve, I don't think he's that player yet. I think he's good as a project signing, but yeah, 40 million plus add-ons, perfect. 50 million, as I said, it looks a bit much. Ryan says do it, but yeah, man. I like
He doesn't say just say do it. He says do it.
do it.
Here, we'll write the check real quick, Ryan. Here we go.
We'll write the check.
Done.
See, that like Chris says, I kind of like the fact that he has Premier League experience. So when we're putting that much money, we know what we're getting, and I think we're getting more of a player that will eventually replace, or maybe right away replace, based on what happens for Fabinho, like somebody more defensive. The more I watch for Thuram, and he has almost like moved up a bit more and more, it feels like, over the last few seasons, from being like a strictly defensive midfielder. Like he's getting his attacking side on, whereas we know that we want our defensive midfield there not to have his attacking side on and just turn on his defensive side and park back there and protect the back line and then stop the counters and stuff like that. So I don't know if he fits as well as Lavia. I feel like Lavia is like a better cover. The only thing I'm concerned with, Anand, is when you say like waiting, it just feels like it seems like that's not how we do business, right? Like we want somebody, we go and get it. And two, it feels like, I mean, based on what he said at the end of the season and even like throughout this like off season here, Klopp wants whoever the hell is going to be there now. So whatever we implement in terms of tactics and stuff like that, we get it. Do you think if we wait, that means basically we're not getting him?
I do think that we are going to play the waiting game just because FSG has gone back to sell to buy. So the McAllister signing, we got the Dominic signing. Those are great signings that we just went in and got them. But I do think the attitude is going to change now. It's going to be sell to buy. So I don't see us making a move for anyone unless a move happens. Now we're reading a lot about Thiago moving on. We're reading a lot. Some people are saying Stevie G wants to bring Hendo to Saudi with him. So there's a lot of talk going on about selling. But I think for the next few weeks, we're going to hear more about selling than we will about buying. We're going to be dealing with all the speculation of he might go. When that happens, we'll make our move for that target that we're looking for. But I think the attitude of just go get whoever the hell you want is gone now. They got us hyped up. They got us excited the first 2 weeks of the transfer market. And then now it's going to be sell to buy. And that's just
great.
What I
we
think.
Got another pessimistic guy in the morning. See, John, see what happens? You got company. Another pessimistic guy in the morning. I got to fight 2 people every morning now. I mean, I still think there's moves planned to be made, but I do agree that there should be some outgoings to offset some of this. But bear in mind, we lost a lot of players because that's what we do, because we let them run their contract out. I mean, if Thiago goes, I think we should take credit for American Scouts because we've been talking about it for like months now, ever since the Saudi thing started. But at the same time, we also talked about Henderson, that, I can see it being attractive for Stevie, but I don't know if like anybody in Saudi Arabia is excited to see Henderson coming over, because he's not. I mean, I always say it here: Liverpool fans don't appreciate the guy. I highly doubt they would over there. So I don't know what if they're forking out like 40 or something like that for Henderson, it's gonna be like, what? Why are we forking out 40 for this guy? But it would be nice. It would bring some money back. So having said that, before we move on to some like general news. So you guys are waiting. Are you waiting too there, John? Because Anand is like, put everybody on hold. He's like, I'll call you guys back about that price. Let's sell some guys first. Are you waiting, or you think there's some moves in the close vicinity here?
Yeah, I feel like the first 2 signings, like Anand said, it's a bit too good to be true. Like we got them right away. FSG is not an all-powerful, sports washing, nation state that's just gonna purchase whoever they want. So there's definitely the business side of things, and we already took a loss with the first 2 that we got, and rightfully so. We needed to strengthen, but I do feel like the Lavia deal is tied as well to someone going. Unfortunately, that guy might be Thiago. It pains my heart to say it because I love Thiago. I think he's an excellent player, but logically, if we are to get someone like Lavia or someone else like a Thuram or something, definitely someone has to go, and that's Thiago. Henderson, that talk about Henderson is just baloney. I'm glad that Anand mentioned it. I just can't get over how crazy, people are in terms of wanting to sell him so quickly. Like, come on, guys. We lost our vice captain in Milner.
Yeah.
And we're just gonna lose our captain as well. This ain't FIFA, boys. We're not losing Henderson.
Yeah, I think that's right. Even in
Yeah.
FIFA 24, this ain't happening. But I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, everybody is already bidding farewell to Thiago over there. Is it just me? I don't know where you're at this with it, but I would be more upset if we sold Henderson over Thiago.
Oh, Tim, don't say if I'm gonna clip that and post it on YouTube, people are gonna come for our heads.
Just bring it on.
I'll go on. I'll go on and say I love Hendo. He is our captain, and he's getting a lot of hate for no particular reason. But just don't touch Thiago. Like you just back off, because if Thiago is to go, I think I will go in a 6-month depression.
Really?
Just because I think if we really want to look at it, he's our most talented midfielder in that team. Now, injuries aside, because that's the issue, when it comes to pure talent, pure football IQ, and pure leadership, Thiago is that guy. Just look at Bajcetic. Look at Stefan. But when Thiago worked with him, we saw a completely different young raw talent that kind of weirdly even looks like Thiago. We're talking the influence is so high, he even drops his socks as low as Thiago, and that tells you something. And then we can go with Darwin. The only person communicating with him is Thiago. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember one of the games last season when he had to go to the bench and Thiago said something to him in Spanish because Jurgen just didn't know what to say.
Yeah,
we are
like
he was like, "Did you just overtalk me?" Right? But we are losing an influence. Hopefully not, but if we do, we'll lose an influence that can now kind of have that Milner role, right? We can have Hendo still, play and everything, but Thiago could have that Milner role where he could come in a few moments in every game, or he could just give you that impact from the bench or in the locker room. Wouldn't want to lose either of them, but if I had to pick, Thiago has to stay.
We got that. We got that. we got that from the get-go, yeah. I don't agree with that at all. Right. I mean, especially when we're comparing leadership, skill, yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, the dude is fun to watch, how he pings some of these balls, how he controls. You can tell he's got that Brazilian in him, the way he plays and stuff like that. Definitely a joy to watch. But you look at availability, you look at impact, and you look at leadership. In all those, I would actually pick Hendo, and that includes like impact. And I think if I want somebody coming in at the end of the game, unless it is to open up a close defense that we can't score against, you mentioned the Milner role. I would much rather have Hendo come in the last 20 minutes of a game to kind of like slap people around, get midfield in shape, and wake everybody up and kind of give that extra energy to get us across the line. I just don't think Thiago is that guy. He's going to do a needless slide tackle or a stupid foul, get up, act like he didn't know what happened with his shocked face. And yeah, exactly. There you go. There's a lot of clips coming out of this. Yeah, I mean, like give that face, and then we give a set piece that's going to get us considered. I feel like I would much rather have Hendo. I knew Saidu was going to have no part of Henderson staying, so that's not a shock at all. But where are you at with it, John? Hendo or Thiago? You get to keep one.
Come on, like this is really tough. But in terms of logic, unfortunately, and like I said, I have to concede here. I feel like Thiago is dangerously approaching the level of a luxury player because he gets paid a very high amount of wages per week. He's rarely available if we're basing it last year. He was very rare. He was mostly injured, right? And like he's very talented, but in terms of his fit with the new system, I can't see him starting week in, week out. And again, it burns my heart to say this because I love the guy. I can only see him maybe partnering with Fabinho on the middle there, but then again, his mobility makes it difficult for him to consistently start, and he might just pull something if he's if he's gonna be running and covering the ground that we need him to cover. So yeah, if we're gonna be bringing in someone like Lavia or Thuram or someone else, he's definitely gonna be the first to go because, like I said, Henderson. Sure, he looks washed. Let's be real. He looks washed, but that leadership that he brings, the unity that he warrants in the locker room, his influence, it can't be understated. That can't be measured by stats. So, yeah, I'd have to keep our boy Hendo. I'm gonna clip this, and we're probably gonna get a lot of backlash on the social media channel. But yeah,
this is thought I would get this out of John, so that's
right. This isn't for clickbait, guys. I genuinely mean this. I'm keeping Henderson.
I mean, I agree with it. I mean, Thiago was originally brought in almost like, the cherry on top. I mean, it was already like a great team, and we're like, look, we're adding this on top. He can do like breakdown defenses and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
The injuries have been the problem. In some ways, having, McAllister and so on, like having depth helps him, right? Because he doesn't have to play every game. He can basically go to the Milner role along with Hendo. One game, one comes in for 20, the other one comes based on what's happening in the game. But okay, let's look at this. If you give him a grade, and since you're the bigger fan, so let's go with you first. If you give him a grade 0 to 10, 10 being holy cow, he's unbelievable in terms of performance as a Liverpool player, what are you giving him so far?
15.
What he's done.
So let me start.
Turn off your PlayStation.
let me start with saying when he was available for selection, and I fully blame our team that got him all beat up, but it's okay. Physios need to no, don't worry about it. But if we're gonna put it on performances in which he put on in the shirt whenever he was playing, I would give him a solid 8. He's had a couple of stinkers, maybe 1 or 2, but let's compare it to how many stinkers our other midfielders had. That'll make him look holy, he's like magic. The problem again has to be the selection. His injuries. I mean, wasn't it a Champions League final? He was in a starting lineup, and then he had like an injury right before the game started, and he had to miss the whole thing. And I feel like that's where we blew it right there. That's where we lost the game. It's things like these that can destroy a whole team before a game, because they walk into that pitch with a complete game plan, and then boom, your main guy, the guy that's going to slice all that defense, the guy that's going to play all those balls is now gone. And you got to replace him with freaking Milner or something, who I love, by the way. But I'd say in the shirt, whenever he played, I give him a solid 8. Whether it's the passes, he's our best tackler, by the way. I'm just going to put that out there. Whether it's the passes, whether it's the tackling, whether it's just the vision, I'd give him an 8. But because of his injuries, an overall Liverpool career would have to be a 6. Just because he just isn't available. Now, in my world, it's a 50, but again, let's just be legit. I'd give him a 6 overall.
I think that's fair. Okay, I thought you were going to stick with 8, but I like the quotients over here, like how it's kind of like went down. I mean, he's a good tackler. He just goes down too easy for my liking in terms of like sliding tackles. So you either get those or you blow it and leave wide open spaces behind, or you foul and you act like nothing has ever happened and you're in total shock. But John, what are you giving for a grade? I agree with 6, but I'm rounding it up from 5.5. And honestly, again, it's all based off of availability more than anything else. I mean, slightly above Keita, right? Because we've had some, like, we haven't had shit performances from Thiago. We've had a couple of like crappers overall from Keita. So if you give Keita, but then we've had some great performances from Keita as well. Everybody forgets that, but it all goes back to when he's healthy, and that should be a given almost for any player. Right. I know it's too much to ask, but it should be a given for any player. So I feel like it would be slightly above Keita. I would give probably a Keita 5 from 4.5 because of some of those crappers that he's put out. But John, what are you giving?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be a bit more generous if we're talking about about overall. This session has just been hot take central, right? All right. So, let me give him a.
You were gonna say, go ahead, yeah.
Right. I'm actually going to give him a 7 throughout his entire Liverpool career, primarily because last year, I believe he was chosen for Team of the Season for Premier League, and I think that's a fair reflection of his impact to
really?
Our team. Yeah, I believe he was Team of the Season last year.
Whom? Like physios? like best starting lineup out of like the training room or something.
Fair enough.
Right. Anan did not appreciate that remark.
You know, I'll tell you, if I open this door, so this is my office down here. If I open this door, the first thing you see, there's a signed Thiago jersey that's hanging on my wall. And I look at that every day and I get my blessings from it. So this whole conversation is going the wrong way. Bad debut, but okay.
I get you, bro.
You
I got a sign
underneath?
Virgil here, right, as well.
Go
So
with
whenever
the
I hear
jersey.
whenever I hear the Virgil wash talk, I totally get what you mean, man. But yeah. To continue my point, I believe Thiago was a massive part in our push to the quad last year. He missed one cup final, which what Anand said, but in terms of like us nearly getting the Premier League, us getting to the Champions League final, he was an absolutely integral part. Like to Anand's point, if he gets to play, we look like a totally different team. But then the other side of that point is that we played the 4-3-3 then. Right, we played the 4-3-3. Now we're switching systems into Trent being more of a inverted right back.
Who knows?
Right. Inverted right back, free roll, attacking midfielder. Who knows? He's just everywhere. So, like, again, I would love Thiago to stay. But the reality is FSG have a way of doing things. And if we are to get more reinforcements from the midfield, which would be more reliable, which would be appearing more, which would be more on the bench, more on the starting lineup, he might be the first to go, which is unfortunate, but that's the way it is. I mean, I'm at loss for words here because
let him go.
Right? Tim's just like, enough with your BS explanation, man. We just gotta let him go. But
Just say goodbye.
Right, a 7 for me. 7 for me. Trent has.
Just as Trent has the passing range from midfield for us not to miss Thiago. I mean, like I say, from the availability, when I look at the lineup, we're at the point where when I look at the lineup, I assume Thiago is not there. Like throughout the season, when you look at the lineup, you already assume Thiago is not there, and that's not a good thing for any midfielder. You know what I mean? Like when you look at a lineup, if you don't see Trent or if you don't see Van Dijk or somebody like that, you're like, whoa, what happened? You never say like, what happened to Thiago? You were like, oh, he must have another knock or something. Like you don't expect him to be in the 11, and I don't think that's a good call. And I think with now you have McAllister in there, you have Dominic in there, so you have players who can pick up the slack on passing and still be able to give you that work rate. So if anybody is, I guess here's the thing, I'm not trying to get rid of the guy, but if anybody is sellable to get some funds for, like, and so that we can buy other players, he's probably the prime candidate when you look at the squad right now. And like I say, somebody who would fetch some money based on his skill. Because, yeah, I mean, the dude is unbelievably talented, and he's a joy to watch. Like, as a soccer person, you can just, it could be a random game. He could play, the guys across the streets, and you would just watch it to see what he does and rolls it around and all that kind of stuff, like his touch on the ball and stuff like that. So the guy's a joy to watch. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to get rid of him, but if I gotta get rid of anyone, I'm getting rid of Thiago. Let's put it that way.
This has been a rough first show for Anand. I'm sorry, man. We're not usually like this. He's
gonna when the show is over, he's gonna walk out the room, hug the frame.
We're pretty okay, guys. I swear.
And start sobbing.
I'm just gonna cry. I'm holding it in right now, and I'm gonna try not to. I don't wanna.
Well, guys. This is a great segment right here. You know who can hold in crying is Jesus. So this just came out about him talking about I've always talked about his whiny face over the last couple of seasons over here. So turns out that he was actually crying in a couple of those scenarios. But he talks about like Pep actually starting Zinchenko. I remember that as a false start. It was like, what the hell? Because sometimes that's the only thing with Pep. Sometimes he thinks way too much outside the box kind of thing. And he's talking about, how he comes and saves that game. He thinks he's set and he's not. I think how did you make that news there, John? Like, he basically says Pep is not an easy guy to play for. And I guess my point is,
Right.
Right.
Like, how is that a bad thing? Like, what is he supposed to do? Like, coddle you and make sure you start every freaking game? I mean, right. Zinchenko is on the other side saying, I guess Zinchenko even told Jesus that he felt bad for him. And I've been there, done that, right? You go out and start again instead of somebody that you're like, man, this is really his spot. He should be starting here, but it is what it is. Like you just go out there. So I know what Zinchenko is saying, but what do you make of that news? Like, what do you think? Will you read it apart from the whiny feast being justified? What do you get out of it?
First of all, it's perfect. Like you say, Jesus' whiny face. He's had to have a ton of practice. So there we go, right? And secondly, Pep is, as much as I hate to say it, like he is the best manager in the world for a reason. Like everyone says that, oh, he has an elite squad, stuff like that. Well, he still has to make it work. He still has to make it work. He still has to come up with the tactics and everything. I think he's the best guy in terms of like maximizing supreme talent, like not necessarily building talent, but maximizing supreme talent. Like if he's got a talented roster, he's gonna make the most out of it. In this case, I feel this is where I think Jesus realized that this was the writing on the wall for him. And Pep is known for his ruthlessness. Like we talk about Klopp being too sentimental. This is unfortunately what separates the both of them, as much as I hate to say it. Like Joao Cancelo had a brilliant season last year. No, 2 seasons ago, right? And he started off 22-23 rather subpar, and Pep just loaned him to Bayern just like that. And I remember reading the news, I was like, holy hell, this guy's not messing around. So like he notices 1%, just a drop of 1% from any of his starting 11. He either benches them or ships them off, which, if we're being real, that's the kind of ruthlessness that you need to stay on top. And Jesus was one of the first to realize that. He took it hard. Well, that's how it is, my friend. I'm sorry. And you moved to Arsenal, and now you're on the receiving end of a Pep ass whooping. So, like, it's the ruthless nature of the business, and Pep has perfected it, and that's why Man City are winning everything year after year.
Yeah, Christos Cancelo was the best fullback in Europe that season, and he was, but it's like kind of like my way or the highway. I feel
Right.
like they're two, like Pep and Klopp are two totally different managers, and you would pick one based on what you got going. If you have a limited budget, limited squad, or a narrow squad that you got to get more out of everybody, you probably pick Klopp. If you're giving somebody bazillion dollars, deep squad with a lot of talents, where you have like national players coming off the bench and stuff, you're probably picking Pep because he rotates a lot more, and I think does a better job of keeping everybody involved and the team moving around along, I should say, as opposed to Klopp, who's just gonna, run the 11 to death basically. But what do you make of this news? I know, like I say, all joking aside, even me, I kind of felt slightly bad for him because it kind of shows how much he cares, right? So that's actually a good quality, that a player cares so much about it, even though it's Jesus, and it's probably like in my top 5 most hated players. But what do you make of the news?
Hello? My amazing striker and my amazing fullbacks aren't doing well. Abu Dhabi, can you send me $1 billion so I can buy 2 more for no particular reason, just so can I, look at the camera and do this? I mean, listen, Pep is great. Pep is great. But there's you said it, thinking outside of the box too much. And it's just sometimes, I feel like sometimes it's for the headline. And, I love the guy. I think he's a great manager, and I think he's a blessing to the Premier League, but it's just too extra. The whole, loaning out Cancelo, the whole just, trying to get rid of Gabriel Jesus isn't because they're having stinkers and all that. It's because he wants to show the sheiks that he doesn't have enough players and he wants more money. And what's an easier way to do it? Oh, look, I don't have a right back. Oh, look, I need another striker. I need Haaland. I lost Gabriel Jesus. Listen, I fully agree with Jesus. It's a little too far. You're going to drop him for a match and then, put in Zinchenko as a false 9. And then here's what happens. They both end up at Arsenal. So it's all for show. Again, Guardiola is great, but it's just too much. And when you have the luxury of having that much money coming at you for no reason, you can go ahead and loan out these players. You can go ahead and sell the players for very low prices because you don't care. You're not operating a real business. You're operating a fraudulent business where the money's going to come in as random donations and gifts and earnings, and you're going to buy whoever the hell you want. So great manager. I just want to discredit him for a lot of the things that he's been doing recently just because of how much money they're dropping on him. And I know people are going to be mad, but it is what it is.
I think that's fair. I mean, he has definitely a bigger margin for error,
Absolutely.
right? So he can, we're talking about Lavia's price tag. We're like 40, 45, 50. That's not as much of an issue when it comes to City. They're like, how much? 60? Why don't we give you guys 50? 50? Good. Okay, done.
100 for Haaland. 100 for Haaland.
It doesn't pan out. Yeah. Even if you sell him for 40 afterwards. I mean, this is something that we always talk about with like Galley, for example. they do cut their losses short. I guess we got to give them that. They do cut their losses short, but they can afford those losses. So I guess it's a bit easier to be able to do that. And I think when you can roll that's I wish Liverpool did that a lot more. Instead of a Taki-like experiment where we buy a player for 3, and even if it is like great, we end up, great deal and high returns, we sell it for 10. I wish we brought that investment level to guys who are 20, 25. So maybe we can turn around and sell them for 50, 60 instead and increase some. Money attracts money, right? You make more money the more you invest, kind of a thing. And I feel like I wish we did that. Sparky, I did see this on Facebook. Sparky is traveling around the world. It's the where is Waldo of American Sculpture. He is now in Liverpool. So bring us something back, will you? Or get us like an interview over there while you're there or something like that for the website. But speaking of managers and who is going where and all that kind of stuff, PSG has announced their new manager. What's your take on this? We'll start with you on this one, Anna. What do you make of this? Right hire, wrong hire? Does it even matter?
Absolutely perfect hire for a project that's going nowhere. Again, I'm not trying to be controversial, I swear. But this PSG's project is falling apart. I don't see Mbappe staying there by the end of the summer. It's just going to fall on Neymar now, and they're going to need to invest, which, again, no problem for them to invest, so much more money to bring in another big-name star player to get the attention back on them. This team, at the highest of its highs, when it had Messi, Neymar, Mbappe, failed to win a Champions League. I now don't see it happening with Enrique or without Enrique. Great project to kind of siphon money, but I just don't see it going anywhere. But a great manager, we'll just put it that way.
Yeah, I think in terms of having experience dealing with big names, I guess it's a good call, right? But it's like the problems, do you think the problem, John, over there? They just don't have the right manager, or it's just money thrown at a squad with no. I mean, we talked about City, right, a minute ago, about how much money is thrown. I think that's where the difference a little bit is, and that's where you have to give, I think, Pep and City a little bit of credit. At least they get players that they know are going to work out, and they don't do, going back to FIFA, like FIFA like signings. That's going to be like, oh, look, great. He's the highest rated forward. But it doesn't fit what the hell we're doing or his personality and stuff like that. I think in personality wise, he's the right guy. But do you think that's the problem there, the manager, or there's so much other stuff before we get to that, John?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a part, but I agree with Anan. Like, he's the perfect manager in terms of like, because he's dealt with I believe he was the manager with when Suarez and Neymar were at Barcelona. Yeah. So he's had experience dealing with big names. Yeah, but I do agree. Like, what is PSG? Where is the end game for PSG? Like, it's all about the Champions League, right? But it's been about the Champions League for the last 10 years, right? Like, if they are to win one, they would have won one already in terms of like them getting the greatest player of all time on their team, and they still couldn't get it done. So like, sure, Enrique might fill a manager-sized void, but is it enough? I don't think so. And to Anand's point, it's going absolutely nowhere. I would have to agree with that because, first of all, I don't like the idea of money just being thrown on teams and them just winning everything. So PSG fits that mold. So obviously, I do not pray for their success, but from a purely objective standpoint, you don't win with Messi, you don't win at all. So that's all I'm going to say here.
This is what I was going to say earlier when we're doing the Pep. I think that was a good segment. I agree with Chris that I can see Pep doing well over there because I feel like here's another thing. I think this is a club where it gets money, but I think City have done the smart thing and said, "Hey, we'll fill up the tank, but you freaking drive, right? And give the keys to Pep. We got oil, no pun intended, so we got gas. So you just keep going. And then, like we do whatever it takes. We'll buy whatever accessories you want for the car. Whereas PSG seems like they're just like they want to drive at the same time and put the manager on the back seats. And he's like, it's hot back here. And, like it's like just full chaos and they can never get it right. Another part is, and this is what I'm wondering, and I'm like, do you think because the French league is such a joke, when we talk about Bundesliga being one-sided, it takes it to another extreme. You think it's kind of hard to keep this team together as a team throughout the season, aside from Champions League games, because life is a little too easy. It's a lot easier to lose focus. The weekend game doesn't really matter that much. They don't need to have to actually focus that much. They can probably win it even without focusing. Even if they lose it, what's the big deal? We're already up by 19 points. You think that makes it more challenging for a manager because there's nothing else to keep him bonded to fight against.
Yeah, and then another thing that's making it hard for managers like last season is giving Mbappe the key to the club. I mean, Mbappe was told, "You run the show. Forget this manager. What do you want? Just please stay." That already ruined the dressing room. I think if that didn't happen last year, we could have seen PSG go on to win a Champions League, maybe. We could have seen players like Messi, players like Neymar feeling content and happy at the club. But for them to say, listen, Mbappe, please don't go. Come to Qatar. Okay, welcome. So what do you want? You want all the money in the world? Have it. You want the club? Have it. You want to have your word on transfers? Please have it. Just don't go. That already ruined your team morale before the season even started. And then to your point, you're playing in the French league. This Saturday, you're playing against Farmers FC. Two of their players are working in the field. They may not show up, and one of them is a cop, and two of them are actually running the grocery store today, so they won't be there. Of course, they don't care. They're not going to go in there feeling motivated. There's only two games they care about, Lyon and Marseille. The rest of it, who cares? They're playing against teams I cannot even pronounce, and I speak a weird language. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. That motivation to play in the French league isn't there. They show up to those Champions League games all hyped up in their Jordan gear because they got that deal too. But other than that, they don't care for the rest. So yes, you're absolutely right. There is no motivation to play in that league.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think it's a really tough job for a manager in that sense because it's hard to keep. And they go with a deep squad, and I don't think anybody is happy. Everybody on that squad is waiting for the Champions League game anyway. And they do struggle against some of these other teams because I feel like those teams are more teams.
Yeah.
They're going against teams, whereas this is kind of like a put together the best of everyone, but not necessarily a team. And I think the personalities they pick, they go after, like I say, it's just FIFA like a little bit, go by ratings and not to see if anybody is gonna fit and stuff like that. Sometimes one player, like when fans want certain players to be signed, you got to stop and think. Like when I said Mbappe, John, that was one of the first things you mentioned. Does he really fit this team? Leave alone all the money before you even get to the money conversation. Does he really fit this team? Yeah, you will love him as a talent, but that's good 1 game, 2 game. That does not last the season if the synergy is not there. So that's kind of like the issue. But hey, more power to them. We'll see where Mbappe lands up. Let's finish with a good story over here. So I think Alan sent this to me. I had a couple of people sent it on Discord as well. Hannah Dingley, League Two team, actually took over from Duncan in League Two's Forest Green Rovers, first female manager, basically taking charge of a club. I mean, it's a huge deal in some ways, but is that like ridiculous pressure at the same time, John? Because I mean, first of all, they would have to have a lot of faith to go with it, and you got to figure it's these smaller English clubs, they're more local, so you if you have the support of the fans very clearly. So she clearly will have the support of the fans for the most part. But I know, I mean, when we talk about women's soccer here, if we get any hate towards women's soccer, I do have to say it's from across the pond. It's from listeners from across the pond. I think the women's game is a lot more respected over here than over there. I think it's slowly changing as their teams are getting better and more relevant and stuff. But I do feel like anytime we talk about it, it gets kind of like put down more from that side than our side over here. So, John, how big of a challenge is it, and how big of a ridiculous pressure is that going to be on her?
Well, first of all, it's a very good step for our sport to have a woman take over a professional club. Secondly, I feel like she's earned this opportunity to become the manager, so she's definitely done a lot of good to get into this position. Now, in terms of the fans judging her, in terms of the pressure, obviously there is a lot, as with any job, especially a job that's incredibly results oriented, like a football manager's job would require. I just hope that if she is successful, or if she's not successful, that she's purely judged based on the merit of what she's done. Like, she's not judged based on her gender or her whatever. Just if she wins, it's because she's a good manager. If she loses, it's because purely of her managerial skills, not because she's a woman, not any ridiculous stuff like that. But I'm just delighted because this could possibly be the road to open a lot of this could have potentially be the avenues to open a lot of roads down the line. And who knows, maybe in a few years we have a woman taking over the Premier League or the MLS or some stuff like that.
I can definitely see MLS a lot
Right.
earlier than Premier League, right? I mean, I see that actually very, very possible and doable. What do you think? I mean, do you think it's a lot rides on her success, regardless of the reasoning behind it?
Well, I certainly would hope not. Like, I hope that, you know, people aren't looking at this particular manager and going like, oh, she's like the last hope for women if they're ever gonna break into men's professional sport. I'm sure there are a lot of female coaches there who are absolutely excellent. They just need to be given the chance. Again, they need to be judged first on their merit, on their skill, not on their gender. Like, for example, the Premier League has a revolving door of managers that are just at different jobs at any given time. You know, Roy Hodgson, Sam Allardyce, David Moyes, those guys, it's just the same names over and over. And, you know, I would appreciate a new breed of manager coming in. And if this warrants it being, women, I do not mind, as long as they bring in new tactics, new ideas, and again, judged by their merit, not their gender. So hopefully this appointment goes well and it opens new avenues for the higher leagues.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, I didn't know that's what Duncan Ferguson was, but this is literally the complete opposite. They could not go. Let's go a totally different direction,
Right.
and this is the only way they're. How about you, Anna? What do you think of this whole ordeal? And does her performance, fairly or unfairly, kind of opens or closes the door for other potential similar events?
I think it's good to start with. It's a good story. It's something good that we see happening in football, and most importantly, Duncan Ferguson. Did he leave because he's a man? No, he left because it just wasn't working out and they brought in a woman. So it doesn't matter if she does well or not. It has nothing to do with her being a woman. It's going to have to do with purely football tactics. I think it's great. It might be a lot of pressure for her the first few matches just because now the whole media is going to be talking about the first female coach rather than just a new coach. And that's kind of where the football world gets a little toxic because we're going to start seeing stuff on Twitter if she loses or drops points or they concede 4 goals in a match. Oh, it's because a woman's a coach. But if it was Duncan Ferguson or Jurgen Klopp or Pep or whoever it is, it's just normal football. I think we need to steer away from that and just not rate her based on her gender, but instead on her football tactics. I think it's great. And I do see this opening a whole new world and a whole new door for other women who want to do this, to do it on a bigger and higher scale one day is all I hope for. Because if you look at the women's game in the US, especially you look at that national team, amazing. Some may argue they're better than the men when it comes to their side of the sport. So to see women get into coaching and not just playing is going to open the door to nothing but success, great stories. And if that doesn't happen, let's not judge it because they're women. We'll just judge it because they didn't do a great job coaching. And that's where I want to leave it at, because I don't want to get in too much details and start getting people clipping my videos and saying, look at this simp and look at this. I'm going to stay away from all that. So you go, Hannah.
I mean, here's the thing, though. Knowing the media is not even a plausible scenario because we know media twist any story the way they want. So I guess really it's important that they have the local media behind because, we know that certain players, and we see it over here, right? You see it in the NFL. If Tom Brady throws a tablet on the sideline, it's like, oh, the passion he has for winning. If somebody else throws a tablet on the sideline, he's like, he can't control his emotions. He can't lead and stuff like that. So the media can twist anything, any which way they want. Do you think it's plausible? You can't get away with this. You're getting clipped one way or the other. You think it's plausible that, the media will actually treat it as is, or the bias is going to be there regardless?
Well, the media is going to make it what we know they're going to make it, because the headline won't say Forest Green lose Derby. It'll say Hannah, the first female coach, drops points in her biggest match of the season. It's going to be one of those lines. So we're not going to run away from that. It's going to happen, but we just shouldn't share it and retweet it and read it because we'd be supporting that piece of negativity. But yes, you're absolutely right. If, Forest Green were coached by Duncan Ferguson still and they lost that match, it'll be tough match for Green and they drop points. But if it's that same one, it'll be like, oh, Hannah and her first coach as a female drops points in an embarrassing display. That's going to happen. You already know. You've been doing this for too long. So yes, it is going to happen.
What do you mean you've been doing this for too long? Is that like an age joke? He freaking comes for a debut and is already talking shit. Man. You guys are lucky it's Friday, I swear. Okay, well, we'll call it at that. We'll finish it off on that note. I'm old. I could only do this for 45 minutes. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you guys bright and early Monday morning. Despite what these guys say, you never know. We might be talking about like a new signing or something happening over the weekend. John, and thanks a lot for joining. Thanks to all those commenting. Give us a like, share, all that good stuff. Have an awesome weekend, and we'll see you guys